Rippaverse, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government.
Recently, the White House press secretary has gone viral in this clip, exposing what many consider to be the wasteful use of taxpayer funds. After watching this clip, I couldn't help but wonder, what was this transgender comic book made for the Embassy of Peru? Who wrote that? Who drew that? And what's going on here? After doing a bit of research, I learned that this comic had won an award for promoting what was described as art, culture, diversity, and LGBT+. The comic is called The Power of Education. Issues 1 and 3 were illustrated by an artist named Cliff Richards, and issue 2 by another artist named Bruno Abdias. But the extremely ironic part is how issues 1 and 3 were illustrated by Cliff Richards. Do you know what other comic book he worked on?
This 96-pager was written by myself, Eric July. The pencil and ink work was done by the great Cliff Richards, and the color work was done by Gabe El-Taib, 2 comic book veterans.
That's right. Cliff Richards, the guy behind this gay Peruvian comic book, is also working for Eric July at the Rippaverse. I wonder if he drew this picture at the end of Item 1. It is a little ironic, isn't it? Considering the fact that he was taking tax money to make this woke comic book in Peru. Let's take a quick look at an interview that Eric July had with John Stossel.
Marvel even named some superheroes Snowflake and Safe Space.
Snowflake is non-binary and goes by they, them.
Okay, that's fine.
It is. I guess you could make the argument, but the fact that he was leading with that, I think, was the problem.
Eric found the designs behind Snowflake and Safe Space quite amusing. Let's take a quick look at the characters behind this book. Just look at the one in the middle. His name is Alex, and his face looks exactly like Blair White's. Now, don't worry, he's not transgender, just homosexual. So let's take a quick look at issue 1. This is going to be focusing on Diego, the guy to the left that looks sort of like Harry Potter, and then Alex, the guy in the middle who looks a lot like Blair White. Diego is heading off to college, but Alex is going to be doing some travel first before he goes to school. And as the two are conversing, they talk about their home life, and Alex mentions that he has a lot of disagreements with his mother. We learn a lot about that in issue 2, and the majority of the disagreements basically center around how his mom wants him, to have a girlfriend and, to date and all of that, but it turns out that he's actually playing for the other team. And if you don't really understand what I'm saying, just take a look at how Alex starts touching Diego. He's like grabbing both shoulders, staring at him intently in the eye, and he's like, "Thanks, Diego. Keep in touch." Yeah, just the way he's like subjecting both of his shoulders. It's emitting a lot of homosexual energy, a lot of very strange vibes. Now this part right here is probably the funniest to me. They just like copied in this brochure, which is talking about this embassy-funded scholarship, and almost nothing in this comic book provides anything of value. It doesn't tell people, any education that they need, but they just show like a picture of a brochure here, which I'm sure they have plenty of these brochures that they hand out to students all the time. They're like, yeah, let's just put it in the middle of this comic book. That'll make kids want to learn and go to school and get the scholarship. This will motivate them. Making a comic book about a gay guy, that's going to make him really, want to go to school. But it's just this one obligatory panel that caused them to get the grant money anyway. But I really don't understand because, it shows the text that's inside the pamphlet, but this is so much more expensive than a pamphlet, obviously to print it, but also just to produce it. I don't understand the logic here, and this really makes me agree with Eric July when it comes to the government and spending, and it just makes me want to scream and say,
"Them bitch-ass roads. Fuck them hoe-ass roads."
Now, there are a lot of things I don't like about this book. Just looking at the buildings and the vehicles, everything just seems so rigid and sterile and computer generated. And it sort of reminds me of Flores Park, the city in Isom, Eric July's Rip comic book, the debut book, I feel like I'm roaming the streets of Flores Park. Now, for all of the things I don't like about this book, there are some things that, are decent considering the type of book this is. This isn't like a real comic book made for entertainment or for developing like a super profound story or characters. It's just kind of, a job that people had, and they're kind of trying to check certain boxes. And it's sort of like, the little comic you'd get at the dentist where it'd say, floss, I'm floss man, clean your teeth, or you're going to get cavities and gingivitis. So the way that Diego gets his powers is he touches an ancient Incan book, and he ends up making him commune with this Incan deity, and then the deity basically shares him his powers because they're, kindred spirits. Now I have to make a very brief and autistic side note. The Incans, by the way, did not have books. The Mayans did have like these accordion style type books. The Incans actually did have a writing system. It was basically with using different strings and knots. It was very complex, but anyway, the point is there were no Incan books, so him getting his powers from an Incan book doesn't make any sense. I know, nobody really cares, and I probably have autism for saying that, but I had to say it. I had to get it off my chest. So as corny as the story is, we know how he gets his powers, and he talks to like this ancient Incan deity. That's kind of cool. And his powers are a little bit nebulous. It's basically making him something sort of like the Green Lantern, where like using his willpower, he can sort of, control things. So kind of similar to the Green Lantern, but still pretty different. But anyway, we figure out how he gets his powers, and that's all consistent, and it makes sense. Now we're going to go to book 2 soon, but before we do that, I just want to show you guys this. You can see how Alex and Diego, they're just like grasping each other's shoulders very firmly and looking directly in each other's eyes very vigorously and passionately. And it just makes me want to throw up. But unfortunately for Diego, Alex actually has a boyfriend. And we're going to talk about that right now since we're going to book 2. Okay, so real quick before we get too much into the gay stuff in issue 2, which by the way, this one wasn't drawn by Cliff Richards. He did the other 2 issues. But the way that it starts out is it says right here, it says Lima, Peru, 6 months ago. But the reason why this really pisses me off is it's the first page. You don't need to say 6 months ago right here. Just end up, when you get to the end of this scene and you go to the next one, say 6 months later there. Because now I'm like, well, 6 months ago from what? What's the reference point? Man, sorry, I just really wanted to throw my microphone, and I know that probably makes me a little autistic for caring so much about that little detail, but you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of ISOM. When you go to the first page of ISOM, it says the same thing. It says, West Flores Park, Uptown, 2 weeks ago. And you just go, well, 2 weeks ago from what? What is the reference point?
Daddy has to review dog shit, baby! Sorry!
So here we end up seeing Alex using his powers, and it shows us that he basically has the ability to enforce his will onto other people. And then it goes back to the 6 months later, which is at this comic book convention. And again, they instead of saying today, because we didn't know what the reference point was, they should have just showed the beginning scene and then said 6 months later. Anyway, sorry if I'm being too autistic for saying that. But yeah, then you see all these trademarked characters. You can see right here the Pink Panther. You can see Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix is the Joker, and you see Chewbacca. All these. You see Mario back there. All these very popular intellectual properties that the young hip kids like to enjoy nowadays. But anyway. Getting back to the story, we see Alex, who's greeted by his mom. She is so happy to see him. And he goes, Mom, what are you doing here? And then the dad says, we wouldn't have missed this for the world, son. Your mother and I are very proud. And then she says, it's wonderful. All these people came to see you and your friends. We were just talking to your friend Carmen. She's lovely. You two would make beautiful grandchildren. I've got to go, Mom. We'll talk later. So yeah, you can see he's just like super butthurt. Like people of his persuasion are often butthurt. And he leaves and he's upset. Diego comes and he's like, what's wrong? Alex, are you all right? And he says, Emiliano is upset. I haven't told my family about him. He thinks I'm ashamed. You'll meet a nice girl, Alex. We want grandchildren, Alex. I'm trying to protect him. So yeah, I know the purpose of this video isn't to do like a full review of these, so I'm going to kind of cut to the chase, but how I was explaining earlier, all these people, they get their powers from the various Incan gods. Well, this one, he ends up seeing this mask belonging to Quichu, the rainbow god, and he talks about how he represents beauty and diversity and all those things. And this rainbow diverse god ends up giving him his powers. So yeah, that's what happens. I have so much more I could say about this, and I am going to talk about it in a live stream, which I'll link to this video later. If you're one of the first people watching this, the link's not going to be there because the live stream hasn't happened yet. How crazy is that? The based White House press secretary calls out the Rippaverse artist and this BS project that he was doing because of wasteful government spending. I say I agree with Eric July on one thing.
Them bitch ass roads. Fuck them hoe ass roads.
I say F them ho gay comic books. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments section, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.